All right. The Enemy is an episode for the Next Generation that's been compared to Enemy Mine and that sort of thing. But the plot and the trope, if you will, is something that's been repeated in other genres. So even Enemy Mine can't quite claim it, even though they're both science fiction and that sort of thing. But basically, you have a situation where Geordi gets trapped on this really dangerous planet that's heavily irradiated and whatnot. And the reason they were there is they were looking into this crashed Romulan ship, and lo and behold, there's Romulans there. You know, one of them is badly damaged. The away team takes him back to the Enterprise, but Geordi accidentally falls in this pit and is left behind. They can't find him. There's this storm going, and their opportunity to beam out is, you know, fleeting and whatnot. And so he has to figure out how to survive and try to get back to the ship. And then, oops, there's another Romulan, and the two of them, you know, the Romulan takes him prisoner and all this sort of thing. But due to the conditions of the planet, he's succumbing to the toxic atmosphere of it much faster than Geordi is. And he's going to need some help here if they're going to get out. And eventually they come to an understanding. They got to work together to try to escape the hazards of the planet. And so they do, but the problem is the sickness for the Romulan is now robbing him of his ability to walk. He's suffering nerve damage from this radiation. At the same time, it's also conflicting with Geordi's visor, to where now he's blind. So the Romulan has to be the eyes, and then Geordi has to be the legs, and so on and so forth. And the Enterprise has set up a system sending a signal for them to use, and eventually they get it. Meanwhile, the Romulans are looking for their lost ship. Of course, they weren't supposed to be in this area. And of course, the Romulans say, hey, it was an accident. We want our crew returned. And they're like, they can't do it. At the same time, they had this other drama going on where the Romulan they did find is seriously injured and is dying, needs a blood transfusion to survive. Problem is, they don't got any Romulans on the ship, so they had to find someone close enough to make up the difference, just to stabilize him, you know. And turns out the only officer on board who could possibly do this is Worf. Well, if you know Worf's story and his history with the Romulans, oh boy, there's no love lost there. So he's refusing to do it. Now, of course, as an officer, and he admits this, the captain can order him to do it. So he's standing there waiting for him to order him, but Picard wants him to willingly do it. He makes the case. We're up against the wall here. The Romulans are wanting their officer back, and boy, it would really go a long way to avoid any kind of conflict if we could just give them a living officer back, you know. But Worf's not going to do it unless he orders him, and Picard just does it, you know. And so the guy dies, you know, and plus, now, hey, look, the Romulan was told of this, and he's like, I'd rather die than have your filthy Klingon blood in my system. So, hey, deal. So that's it for him. The Romulan ship shows up. They have to inform them that their officer's dead. Boy, this isn't going well. And then they're able to find Geordi and the other Romulan. They beam them immediately to the bridge in the midst of this negotiation, I guess, with the Romulan commander and all that. And, to his credit, the Romulan says, this human helped me. I have not given any secrets and all this sort of stuff. And what they're telling you is true. So there you go. The danger's over. He returns to his ship. So it's a good little episode there. And you've got several elements here, especially Worf's story, which will grow as the show continues, and these are the elements that puts down the groundwork for that, with what happened to his family and the Romulans and all that. Then of course Geordi, his skills and stuff, and then this whole idea of the Romulans, which kind of leads to another episode, not entirely, but the back and forth with the Romulans and the state of affairs in the era of Next Generation, now that there's peace with the Klingons and all that. And just the charm and the interaction with the characters continues to solidify and grow, and makes it a really good, solid show. Just on the aspect of having to work with your enemy because you're forced to in certain conditions, and you're not as bad as I thought, and that kind of thing, which is sort of the fantasy. And sometimes happens in real life. There's, World War I, where the Christmas miracle, and the trench warfare and all that kind of thing. So it's interesting because at the time that I watched this, then I saw the Strange New Worlds episode that does the same thing with Ortega and the Gorn, and it was pretty cut and dried about it, pretty simplified. But for the most part, they tried to do something with it, even though there's nothing original about it. But you could say the same for the others, except they slapped on the elements of the classic Star Trek of Arena with Captain Kirk and the Gorn, and it really, so whatever they might have achieved, just a little bit, because it wasn't really all that great, and they can't help themselves, they had to just sabotage it. But it was interesting because, hey, they did something similar in Next Generation and all that. Well, similar, but not the same, and they did it better. So there you go. That's the Enemy. It was a good episode. The price, well, here we get a look at, which I suppose is what eventually inspired the scenario for Deep Space Nine, where you have this planet that's in the vicinity of a wormhole. Well, this is the same scenario here, where there is this wormhole that opens up, and this planet is setting up a bidding war over the different entities that might take an interest not might, they are all interested in it, and oh boy, we could go to this whole other quadrant of space and exploit the resources and all that, so as it happens, Riker is assigned to be the main negotiator with these people. Other players come in to make their bids and whatnot. The Ferengi want to be a part of it and all that, and some interest sends their guy to do this, and this smart-ass smirking bastard is up to no good, but at the same time he's got the hots for Counselor Troy. And I guess, well, Counselor Troy's been single a while, her and Riker, that's over with for the time anyway. And oh boy, here's this new guy and stuff, and he puts the moves on her, and they have a little romance, and then only to discover the secret to his abilities to be a great negotiator is that he too, like her, is an empath, so he can sense their emotions and whatnot and use that to manipulate them. And he's doing that, and at the same time he was involved in some deal with the Ferengi to create some mischief, to cause concern among the other bidders, especially if they signed up and joined with one another to counter the Federation's offer, and against the people of the planet itself, in the sense that, the Federation, they're warlike and all this sort of stuff. And it works, and he plays on that. And then eventually, I don't know, I guess Deanna she's tired of him. They had a few rolls in the hay, and she decides to expose his ability to the whole council. And like, hey, we've been deceived and all that. Plus, the Ferengi were setting up part of the scam, and look, watch the show. It's a funny little scene with him. But this also set up turns out it was all for nothing, because the wormhole was unstable and collapsed. So Geordi and Data travel through the wormhole along with the Ferengi, and then they start detecting that, oh my God, it's unstable. We got to go. If it collapses, we'll be trapped out here on the other side of the galaxy. So they leave, and then the wormhole seemingly disappears. And then the two Ferengi are still sitting there in their ship, and then suddenly the wormhole opens up again, and he's like, ha ha, they're those cowards, right according to my calculations. but before they can go back through the wormhole, it disappears and whisks away, and now they're trapped. Now, not only does this set up a premise that they would use for the Deep Space Nine show, with that wormhole actually works and it's not unstable. These guys show up again much later in Voyager, because the Voyager ends up on that side of the galaxy, that quadrant. And there you go. So they revisit those characters, because otherwise those idiots are stuck. So it was kind of a funny little end for those idiots, but hey, don't worry, it works out for them later on. So there you go. It was more of this, romance thing for Troy, but he was an underhanded guy, and in the end, he was more into her than she was into him, because he's like, I want to be a better man since I met you, and she's like, that's okay. She just wanted a fling until she can finally get back with Riker, because it's meant to be, And so there you go. That's how that played out. So of the two, Enemy was probably better, but had some good moments in both.